German verb lassen. In today's lesson, I will teach you when and how to use lassen in German. Lassen is quite special and doesn't exist in the exact same way in English. Hi, my name is Jan and I'm your German teacher here on EasyDeutsch, your YouTube channel for German grammar. Today's topic is the verb lassen. Lassen is a very special verb. It can be used like a modal verb, but it is no modal verb. But with the help of my ebook German Grammar Explained Easily, I will teach you now everything you have to know. So let's switch right into my ebook. So we're here now in my ebook German Grammar Explained Easily. So today's topic is the verb lassen. So let's jump right there through my table of content here. Werden, so lassen. And lassen is very special in the German language because we can either use it as main verb or like a modal verb. That means with a second verb in the infinitive form in the same sentence. If you do not know what a modal verb is at all, I highly recommend you check out the video in the info card. There I will explain to you what the modal verb is and which other modal verbs do exist and what makes them so different from a regular verb. And back to lassen, the meaning of lassen actually is different depending on the use. So it can have several different meanings, and it can also be an alternative way of expressing the passive voice in German. Again, if you don't know what's the passive voice, I will link a video for you in the info cards where I explain to you everything you have to know about the passive voice. So let's have a look now at lassen as a main verb. If you use lassen as a main verb, it means to stop or to quit something. So for example, ich lasse das Rauchen means I'm quitting smoking. I quit smoking. I don't smoke anymore. That's what it means. I use the this version that I'm doing it right now because it kind of has this touch. I would only say this if I really do it right now. I will quit smoking. I'm quitting smoking right now in this moment. But it can be technically used anytime if I want to say this. But that's why it's this translation here, because it has this annotation that I would say this only when I do it right in this moment. Same here in the second example, because that's actually an imperative. So it's an order. Lasst Papa in Ruhe. So stop annoying Daddy. Papa. So here it is to stop. You order somebody to stop something. So this is very different from English. You cannot use let daddy alone. I mean, I guess it technically does work, but yeah, it is definitely a little bit different from English, but you simply have to know what it means. And now let's go to the use as an auxiliary verb. Lassen can be used like a modal verb. That means here with a second verb in the sentence, in the same main clause. And it's not a full modal verb because it actually means something by its own. Normal modal verbs like können, müssen, wollen, they do not really mean anything by themselves. But lassen, like we just learned, does mean something as its own. That's why it's not considered a modal verb, but we can actually use it like a modal verb. What's the deal with it? Well, all the other verbs that can't do this will get the infinitive mit zu, so the infinitive clause, because usually you cannot use two verbs together and without using the zu in front. But lassen is one of the verbs that works without infinitive mit zu. If you want to know more about infinitive mit zu, please check out the video in the info cards here for you. So let's have a look at those examples here. Ich lasse mein Auto in der Garage stehen. Means I'm leaving my car at home in the garage. So I leave it there. I don't take it with me. Ich lasse mein Handy zu Hause liegen. So I'm not taking my phone with me. I leave my phone laying at home, word by word. I do not change something. I do not bring it. That's what it means. And it can also mean to allow something or to disallow. Ich lasse meinen Sohn abends Fernsehen. So I allow my son to watch TV in the evening. I let my son watch TV in the evening, word by word. Lässt seine Tochter mit dem Auto fahren. So he lets his daughter use the car or drive the car. So he allows his daughter to drive the car. And the moment you put a negation in here, it's to disallow something, to prohibit something. Lässt seine Tochter nicht mit dem Auto fahren. Ich lasse meinen Sohn abends nicht Fernsehen. And then it's the opposite. And here, keep in mind, lassen is always connected with something that describes a state and not really an action. So something like stehen, sitzen, liegen. Very often, especially with that first use. Here you can, if you allow something that can be an action, but here in the first thing, that is usually always a state, not an action. And what's maybe very important, especially in the spoken language, is the fact that we often drop the second verb because it's obvious or just commonly known. And then we just treat lassen like a main verb, but it's actually we just dropped the second verb. For example, here, ich lasse mein Auto in der Garage. Ich lasse mein Handy zu Hause. Here we can easily drop those ones and then it is equally fine. But keep in mind, it does not mean to stop then or to quit. It just means to leave something behind. And this is true for this first use. And let's have a look at the third use. It means that something is possible or impossible. So, for example, Pizza lässt sich ganz leicht selbst machen. Pizza is very easy to make yourself. So, this is possible to do yourself easily. Der Fernseher lässt sich nicht reparieren. So, it's not possible to repair the TV. Here, if you try to translate this with let, it's not gonna work because this is the passive use or already a little bit in the passive way. It's possible, impossible in a passive way. So nobody who's doing it, it doesn't matter who's doing it, it's not possible. And we can also use lassen in the meaning of to arrange for something or to be done. So somebody is doing something for us. Ich lasse mein Fahrrad reparieren. So I'm having my bike repaired by someone else. Ich lasse mir eine Pizza bringen. So I will have a pizza brought to me. So that always means somebody else is doing something for us. And the fifth use is the real passive meaning. And meine Freundin lässt sich die Haare schneiden. So that's the same as die Haare meiner Freundin werden geschnitten. So this means my girlfriend let her hair being cut, this version, versus the hair of my girlfriend is being cut. This sounds weird in English, at least for me, while this sounds good, but this is the more common version in German. I would say, I mean, you can use both, but this is a way more commonly used. For you, you have to understand it, that it just means the hair of my girlfriend is being cut, or she actually ordered somebody to do the cut for her. The same, like, similar to those. Here I ordered somebody to repair my bike. Here I ordered somebody to bring me a pizza. And it all has already like this slight passive touch. If you don't know what's passive voice, I highly recommend you to first check that out actually in English. If you don't have any clue whatsoever, check it out what it is in English so that you understand what passive actually means. And if you do know what it is in English, check out the video in the info description where I actually explain to you the passive voice in German. We have a few more examples here. Mein Vater lässt sich morgen operieren. So my father has an operation tomorrow, in the meaning of he has arranged it to be done tomorrow. Das Problem lässt sich einfach lösen. The problem can be easily solved. It's possible to solve the problem easily by whoever. So it's not important who's doing it. That's the main thing in the passive voice. And last but not least, let's have a look at the conjugation of lassen. Yes, it's irregular in the second and third person is singular, but the rest here in present tense is actually irregular, like always. And here we have to add the dots. So it's the vowel change, but that's it. The rest is quite regular. And here, this is actually also according to the regular rule, because we do not want to have a third S here. That's why we have to drop this ST or the S from the ending. Simple past preteritum, as usually, entirely irregular. So you have to know that that's the case here. If you want to know more about the tenses, especially here preteritum, I will link that video in the info cards for you. And in the perfect tense, we have similar to werden. If you've watched my video on werden, we have two different versions for the past participle. So let's have a look at lassen or gelassen. When do we use them? It's exactly the same like with werden. If lassen is the main verb and we put that into perfect, then we use gelassen. For example, ich habe mein Auto zu Hause gelassen. So I left my car at home. Here we have only lassen as a main verb, so we use gelassen. But if we use it in passive, then it's lassen without the GE. So that, for example, das Problem hat sich einfach lösen lassen. Here, if we have another verb in front, no GE. That's the same thing like with werden. If there's another verb in front, no GE here. But if there's none, we put the GE there, because here we actually use it only as auxiliary verb. It doesn't have a proper meaning here, so that's why we use lassen. But here we use gelassen because we use it actually as a main verb with a proper meaning. This is the standard rules for modal verbs as well. So if you ever encounter modal verbs in a passive voice, same thing. No gemusst. It's just müssen, so just the infinitive of the verb itself. Now you know all the secrets of the verb lassen. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to write them in the comment section below. Also, if you learned a lot today, please don't forget to hit the like button, and if you haven't done it yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to support me, there are several different ways to do that. First and free one is, of course, share this video with your friends and help your friends as well to understand German grammar. Thank you very much for this support. The second way is actually purchase my ebooks. The one that you just saw in this lesson can be bought through a link in the video description, and this ebook actually has 10 more friends to check out. So you will find the links to all of them in the video description. And then I hope I will see you again in one of my other lessons, and until then, viel Spaß und Erfolg beim Deutschlernen.